It is Friday, so let's get to some questions from the listeners.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. And you can always catch us on wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or on Odyssey and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I am based in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, where I currently am doing this show from right now. Do some hosting, co-hosting, and a little bit of producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. With it being another Friday, we've got a lot of questions to get to from YouTube and X, though not as much as we did last week. I am going to be keeping that promise that throughout this next 2-month period, every single week we're going to be having 3 episodes a week, but we'll always have a Mailbag Friday unless some breaking news happens on a Friday. Then we would do an episode dedicated to that, whether it be a trade, free agent signing, and we would just answer the questions right online. It would be right back to you on YouTube or be right back to you on X as well. So that's kind of the plan moving forward for the next 2 months or so. But first question we got is going to be coming from Jersey Jayhawk. Could you see the Royals going after David Robertson? I do think that I have been in the camp of, if you're going to move Chris Bubic to the rotation and you are going to bank on him thriving in the rotation, I'm not sure you can just put all of your eggs into the basket of Hunter Harvey becoming the 8th inning guy that Chris Bubic was, or becoming the guy that Hunter Harvey once was. It feels a little bit risky to me. But right now, I do think that the reliever market is pretty expensive. I mean, Mike Soroka, who got moved to the White Sox bullpen after struggling in the rotation, he just got $9 million with the Washington Nationals. So David Robertson is definitely going to be worth more than that. You're likely getting closer to the $13-14 million range. And I'm also of the belief that overpaying for bullpen arms, even if they turn in a good season the previous year, it seems a little bit reckless to do because you can get value for guys that are much, much cheaper. But to that same point, I do think David Robertson is a guy that could really help out this bullpen, and you'd feel far more solidified with the back end with Lucas Erceg and David Robertson than I do right now with Lucas Erceg and a guy like Hunter Harvey. I'm still high on Hunter Harvey, but to me, I feel like it is a roll of the dice because there is a chance that Hunter Harvey's prime was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and now he's on, the backward spiral. He's on the backside of the mountain of his career, and you're not going to get the same type of production. But I also don't think he was ever healthy last year for the Royals, so having a healthier start of the season might go a long way for the Royals. And I'll take their word for it. If they believe Hunter Harvey can do it, then Hunter Harvey can do it, unless he proves us otherwise. But I would love the addition of David Robertson. I've always thought he could spend time in Kansas City. He's been a free agent multiple times in the last 5-6 years, and the Royals never found a way to lock him down, but he's still putting up good numbers, so I would be all for it. Aiden's question is, do you believe JJ is just waiting for the trade market to come down, or do you think he is also waiting for the free agent market to come down? And if so, what free agents could JJ be looking at? I'm going to go yes to both of these. Right now, it appears that the market is just absurd, where you have guys that aren't even everyday players asking for a lot of money, which is why it's not just the Royals. It's a lot of teams out there that are taking more of the wait and see, the patient approach. And when it's December 20th, you kind of have that luxury. And more so for the Royals, when you checked off 2 of the most important boxes on your free agent or trade wish list and bringing back Michael Wacha and then getting Jonathan India, it allows you to be more patient. There are teams out there that haven't made a single move that they may not have the luxury of waiting it out because those players are eventually going to start signing. those guys are eventually going to start being traded to other teams. So for the trade market, absolutely. I think the Royals are waiting for one of those selling teams, one of those teams that's going to be looking to rebuild or retool in 2025 to bring down the price on the player the Royals would be asking for. I'm still at 100% confidence that the Royals are going to go after a middle-of-the-order bat, but it's very clear right now that middle-of-the-order bat is more expensive than they would like it to be. When it comes to the free agent pool, I think the only way the Royals would pivot to the free agent pool and try to overspend for a player for the middle of their order would be that the trade price never came down, which I don't think is going to happen. I think the closer we get to February, the more that price is going to come down because those teams understand they need to move those players. They need to get value in return for those players where they're not going to have that successful of a season. I'm looking at a team like the Angels, even though they have made moves. Taylor Ward is somebody that I feel like they know they should move because he had a pretty good 2024. You can capitalize on that and get good value for your team to build for the future. But that asking price right now appears to be way too high. If it never comes down, maybe you do pivot to somebody for the middle of the order like a Jock Peterson or maybe somebody like a Jurickson Profar for the middle of your order. But right now, I think both are really way too high. It's an absurd asking price right now, and the Royals are trying to wait that out. And some guys that I do think they're waiting it out on, I mean, we've brought up Josh Rojas multiple times. I think even he's asking for a lot more money than the Royals are willing to give. And you wait for that price to come down, you get closer to January, February, then you can strike a deal like that. But the free agent pool, they can pick from a lot of guys right now. I mean, there's the top names out there with a Profar, with a Christian Walker, a Jock Peterson, Alex Bregman's out there. He's going to be out of the price range, I think, for 90% of baseball. But there still are guys to like out there. Jesse Winker's another under-the-radar name that you could plug into your outfield and have a little bit of an upgrade. I think Harrison Bader is still out there, if I'm not mistaken. So some of those cheaper guys, I think the price will really come down on them. Next one comes from Dylan. If the Royals are content with where their payroll is at and not looking to add another middle-of-the-order bat, could they possibly believe Jack Caglianone will be ready to go by July? I think they certainly feel like Jack Caglianone could fast-track to the big leagues, but I don't think Jack Caglianone's the type of hitter you just want to rush because I do think there are parts of his game that need to develop. He's not one of those guys where I think if you just pencil him into the big league level, he's going to dominate. I think you really want to take your time with Jack Caglianone, and if he forces your hand, he forces your hand. If he's hitting 400 in Double-A and he's got 15 home runs in the first 2 months of the season, then all right, I think you could look into that a little bit more. But I think Jack Caglianone really needs to be crafted into a complete hitter, not just big-time power and hard hit rate. I mean, I would love to see the walk rate go up, which it was great in college, but because pitchers didn't want to throw to him. I need to see the swing and miss go down a little bit. I need to see hitting to all fields. I need to see his defensive abilities improve a little bit throughout Double-A Northwest Arkansas and in Omaha. And so that's why I think with the Royals, best case scenario is, you could be looking to have a stopgap guy as your middle of the order bat. You're not overspending for it. That guy gives you good production. Maybe you flip him for some pitching help, and then Jack Caglianone will be able to be there the last 2 to 3 months of the season for your playoff run. But I don't think he's going to be ready that early. I think the Royals hope that he could be ready by like September, but I think the timeline still matches up with early 2026. Next one here comes from Blaze. What is Bubic's floor, most realistic outcome, and ceiling for next year in the rotation? I think Chris Bubic's floor, has to be in combination of not looking good, but also not staying healthy. I think that would be the floor, is having more arm troubles. If you're going to talk in terms of ERA, I would say north of like 5.3. The strikeout numbers aren't translating. The walk rate becomes a problem again. The velocity's down to 92, 93, maybe even 90, 91. But to me, it would be more so about not staying healthy. I think to me, that would be the floor for Chris Bubic, because I think if he stays healthy, he's going to look good. Most realistic outcome, I think you're looking at a guy that can give you 140 innings, maybe 135 innings, because he's never thrown 190, 200 before. And I don't expect that from a number 4 starter. But I think having somewhere like a 3.5 ERA, 140 innings, a strikeout rate, maybe striking out, 8 to 9 guys per 9, walking less than 3 guys per 9. That feels pretty realistic. And then the ceiling, I think you're talking about like 150, 160 innings, a 2.9 ERA, striking out 10 guys per 9 with a very low walk rate, maybe a whip that's around 1.01 or 1.02, so below league average. That to me feels like the ceiling, and that would mean translating what he does out of the bullpen to the rotation, which I still think there is that opportunity. To me, it's all about health. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to have good numbers. Okay, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, still a lot of questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our first sponsor today in Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Also want to tell you about SelectQuote, the World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other insurance life and brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Go to SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. The next round of questions is going to begin here with RB Carr. If they're looking for a bench bat, a left-handed bat at that, who can play both the infield and outfield, why are they not considering Javier Vaz for it? I think when you are a team like the Royals trying to improve off a 86-win season, banking on guys who have never been big leaguers before can be a risky move unless you are so certain that guy is going to be able to transition seamlessly. The reason I bring it up with Javier Vaz, who I love, by the way, is that Javier Vaz is a good on-base guy. He has a good walk rate. He's also a singles hitter. I mean, he's only 5'6", like a $150, $160. Might be a little bit more than that now, but he's a smaller statured guy. Think a little bit like Samad Taylor. And Samad Taylor was somebody that had more power than Javier Vaz, though Vaz's bat is coming around a little bit more, but Samad Taylor could never really put it together at the big league level. Nick Lofton is another name, tore it up in AAA. The Royals counted on him being that super utility guy. He couldn't put it together at the big league level. So the Royals, I think, might be more comfortable with giving a one-year deal to a guy who has been a super utility player, who has had multiple years of experience at the big league level, than rushing Javier Vaz to that spot when Javier Vaz has, not put together even a 2 or 3 month really good stretch of offensive abilities. I think that he can be up in Kansas City at some point this season if there are some injuries, but I think they would far more prefer a guy that, like, I don't want to say exactly like Adam Frazier, but both Adam Frazier and Garrett Hampson were brought in because they had big league experience and they had been a super utility guy for a contending team before. For the Royals, I think they would be hoping to do the same thing, looking through free agency once again. Josh Rojas is the name I keep going back to, and I think he'd be an upgrade over what the Royals had last year and their super utility role. Kelby's question is, what is your real expectation for the guys taken in this year's draft outside of Jack Caglianone, of course? So we're talking about the guys that the Royals took. David Shields is somebody that I believe is going to have a huge upside like Blake Walters. And what I loved about it was he's not like what Frank Mozzicato was, where he was an older high schooler, and by the time he was done in his first year of pro ball, he was nearly 20, whereas David Shields was 17 when the Royals drafted him. So you're talking about a lot of time to develop. I like a lot of the stuff that he can become once he gets to 21, 22 years old. And when you have more time to develop, there's no need to rush him. So the Royals can really, really take their time with a guy like David Shields. And he was somebody too that I think got significant praise from a lot of experts out there covering the draft. So to me, I think he's somebody that can not fast track. He's more so going to be a slow play. I think Drew Beam, the guy they took in the third round, can absolutely be a guy that fast track. You heard us have an interview that we did have some connection problems with LP Langevin. I like what he could be as a reliever. He's somebody, if they just tried him out as a reliever, could fast track pretty well to maybe as far as AA this year. And I don't know, maybe he could get a chance in AAA because he was one of those college arms. They took so many pitchers, right, too, in this last draft as well, because they feel pretty confident in developing pitching talent. Offensively, I don't know if there's anybody out there that I really think is going to have a big jump in year one. I mean, they didn't take their first offensive player until the 9th round, which was Kenyon Brown out of North Carolina A&T. So the expectations, I mean, Jack Caglianone, we've brought it up so many times. Drew Beam, I would like to see get as far as maybe Quad Cities this year, but that seems like it's pushing. I think he'll have a full year in Columbia before he would get to Quad Cities. Guys like Drew Beam and AJ Causey, LP Langevin, maybe they can get to AA by the end of the year. And then you get down to the guys that are in the double-digit rounds. I don't think any of those guys will be fast-tracking to AA or AAA in their first year of minor league professional ball in the Royals system. But I do like the question there because we haven't had a lot of talk on guys outside of Jack Caglianone from that 2024 draft class. Sam's question is, I know everyone would love to see Jack Caglianone, but realistically, which prospects could you see crack the majors this season at some point? Number one for me is going to be Noah Cameron. I think Noah Cameron could be in Kansas City as early as June. Might come down to a few injuries, though. I would love to see him get a crack at the rotation if guys like Chris Bubic or Alec Marsh aren't cutting it, because I love the type of arsenal that he possesses. I think he's too good for AAA, and he still could make a case to break camp with the team out of Surprise. I'm sure we'll see him in Surprise when we go down there for spring training. So I'd love to have a conversation with him where his head's at and what he's been working on this offseason. But Noah Cameron, to me, has a good chance. I do think somebody like a Gavin Cross could certainly make his way to Kansas City, maybe midseason, early second half, if he continues to improve offensively and stay healthy. Staying healthy has been a big thing for Gavin Cross for a long, long time. I thought when he was healthy last year, he was really damn good. So Gavin Cross is another name that comes to mind there. Eric Sarantola's got lights out stuff, power stuff. So if the Royals had an opening in the bullpen, it wouldn't surprise me to see him there as well. So to me, those might be the three. Luander Avila, they added him to the 40-man roster. So if he can really flourish at the lower level and get his way to thriving in AA, I could give him an outside chance come September. So those might be the 3 or 4 names that I feel pretty good about cracking it to Kansas City after a strong year at the minor league level. Jonathan asked, what would a season have to look like, in your opinion, for the Royals to significantly bump payroll? Feel like last year was about as good as you're going to get performance-wise with current payroll and Witt's contract increasing yearly. I think that the Royals are in good hands when it comes to the guy operating the team, and J.J. Piccolo, Brian Bridges coming over last year, Scott Sharp as well. They've got bright minds there. I'm not saying that to be a mouthpiece for the organization because I'm not. There's nothing I get from talking highly about the Royals. I don't get paid to talk highly about the Royals. It's just my personal opinion. John Sherman, though, I think does deserve credit for giving the money last year to improve the team from 56 and 106 to 86 and 76. It also comes down to who's out there, who's available on the market. And I always thought that this free agent pool was certainly top heavy. It was loaded, but there wasn't the perfect fit for the Royals for the top half guys. I think there will come a time where the Royals give a lot of money to somebody to either be a frontline guy or to be a main part of that lineup. Maybe it'll be when Salvador Perez is gone and retired. That way they need to really feel some big-time production in the lineup. But they're coming off a year in which they spent a lot of money, and I think that J.J. Picollo is being honest when he says, if we find the right player, we can be flexible with our payroll. And right now, I don't think they found the perfect player to be flexible in that payroll. But no, I don't believe that last year's as good as it's ever going to be. I think putting together a handful of consistent years and you get to that expectation of it's not about just hoping to make the playoffs. We are a playoff team, and we need to continue to bolster our team to be a World Series contender. That's when I think you're going to see the spending really start to increase. And right now, I mean, if we have a similar payroll as last year, there's no reason to believe they can't go 88 and 74, 90 and 72 and get back to the postseason. I think the pieces are there. But in terms of the market and what guys are asking for, they're not going to ever be the Yankees or the Mets or the Dodgers, maybe not even the Padres. But they could get to that level of what the Orioles do in spending some money, or they can get to the level of what maybe the Cubs do or what the Astros do in spending some money. They just, I think, are waiting for that right player again to give a lot of money to. They gave a lot of money to Bobby Witt Jr., and I don't think they're going to let him play out the rest of his years and then never give out another big contract to somebody that would deserve a big contract to come into Kansas City and thrive. So that's kind of my thoughts and takeaways there on what the payroll may be like. But I'm not too concerned that last year is the most they're ever going to spend on free agents. I expect in the coming years they will have a higher payroll. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. And who knows, maybe they do surprise us all and give out a decent contract that does put them above the payroll that they had last year. We'll take our final break here on the show. When we come back, we'll wrap it up with the last couple questions we got here on a Mailbag Friday. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our final sponsor and our title sponsor today in FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And for my pick, I'm going to go to that Ravens and Steelers game coming up tomorrow afternoon, right after the Chiefs and the Texans. I'm going to take the over on rushing yards for Derrick Henry in a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last couple questions we have here, and appreciate everybody sending in their questions every single week. This one is going to be coming from Matt. We got 3 more to go and about 5 minutes to do so. Why do you think some Royals fans defend the payroll of teams for which we know that the revenue sharing they receive? The Royals are in the same tier as the A's, and now we know they get $70 million before TV, merch tickets, anything. A $125 million payroll doesn't scan all of the sudden. Well, Matt, it is pretty fitting that we were just talking about payroll and increasing that. I think when it comes to the Royals, there shouldn't be an excuse for them not spending money. If you go back and watch some of my podcasts, which would be, hundreds ago, back in 2023, I would say I was pretty critical of them just sitting on their hands going into 2023, even though it was an evaluation year. Because I said toward the end of September, there's nothing stopping them from being Baltimore. There's nothing stopping them from being St. Louis. They can spend money, and them crying poor, them saying they're not ready to win is not really an excuse. And I think last year showed that, hey, we can spend money and be a playoff team and be a competitive playoff team at that. But I think when it comes down to really increasing the payroll, it's not so much this year I've seen people making excuses. I think it's been that it's so early. I mean, I've even put this out there that if it's February and the Royals don't give out any more contracts or don't give out or have any more trades happen, then I do think there would be some reason to blame ownership. And why aren't you increasing anything after an 86-win season, appearance in the ALDS, and you took the Yankees to Game 4? There would be some deserving criticism to that. But when it is December 20th, I don't think that fans need to be up in arms and irate that they haven't done anything since the Waka and Jonathan India deal. I understand where their payroll is at. I understand it's not popping in the top 10. It's going to likely be around where it was last year, but that also doesn't mean they're going to be a worse team. And just because you go out there and give a huge contract to, Jerks and Profar, or you take on Cody Bellinger's $27 million salary and only have $5 million sent to you like the Yankees, it doesn't mean that, that's just you're a great owner, you're a great GM. Because what would happen, right, if the Royals significantly increased payroll and then were worse last year, missed the postseason? We'd be blaming all parties involved. Well, why'd you spend money on that guy? It's the way baseball goes, it's the way sports goes when you talk about giving money and not giving money. If they don't give any money, it's, they're cheap, they don't want to win. If they give a lot of money and they get the wrong guys, those guys can't evaluate talent, they're not good. And you don't even really bring up that they tried to win. I mean, there were times last year that Royals fans got frustrated and they were going to miss the postseason and didn't want to acknowledge that they had tried to make an effort to win games. I think if they would have fallen short in the postseason, a lot of fans would have said that's disastrous. That's a terrible season that they collapsed so late and they didn't spend enough money to go out there and win. I think the Royals understand that they've got pieces in place, but they don't need to overspend at the spots that they are trying to improve. If that middle of the order bat doesn't come into their wheelhouse via trade, I think they'll go through free agency and try to bring in somebody that can help the lineup. He won't be a game changer where you're spending 15, 20, 25 million a year for that player, because I think they also trust in some of their guys to improve next year. And they trust on some of their minor league prospects and their top guys to be an impact at the big league level. But to your question about making excuses, I haven't seen too many people making excuses for not spending. It's more so making excuses to why they haven't made moves in the last 2 months, which is that it's still earlier. I guess make moves in the last month or so. I just think that it's one of those things where the market's been slow. They're trying to be a little bit more patient, but we can seriously evaluate the payroll and where it may be or where we hope it to be in February. And if it's the same payroll or maybe a little bit more, I'm not going to be too upset by it. But if you get to next year and the Royals really need to improve and there are guys that fit the guy they're looking for, the pitcher they're looking for, the bat they're looking for, they need to start spending some pretty big cash to improve that team and make sure that they capitalize on this window of being competitive and being a postseason team. Next one here comes from JT Royals on 96.5. I saw JJ that they are looking for pitching depth and a left-handed bench bat. Does that mean they're not looking for that middle of the order bat? No, I put this out on Twitter yesterday. 12 days ago, he was quoted in Jalen Thompson's article saying, if we get that middle of the order bat that lengthens our lineup, we'll feel pretty good. We'll feel pretty happy about where we're at. I don't think they abandoned that less than 2 weeks later because the market's not really moving. I think it's that they already understand that a middle of the order bat is needed, and saying that you're looking for starting pitching and you're looking for a left-handed bench bat, that's more so of just, putting it out there that we are looking for that as well. I think it goes without saying they're still looking for a middle of the order bat. I would be absolutely floored. My jaw would be on the floor if they said multiple times throughout the offseason, we want a middle of the order bat. Even after they acquired Jonathan India, they said, we need to find that extra bat, that middle of the order guy. If they just didn't do anything to get the middle of the order bat, I would be stunned. I would be absolutely floored. Not saying it's impossible, but when J.J. McCullough says we're looking for this, we're trying to get this, it's not a matter of will they get them. It's a matter of when will they get them. They clearly have guys on their radar. They have guys on the top of their list, but those guys may be too expensive right now, and they're waiting for that price to go down. So I think they're going to get all three of those categories, and it wouldn't shock me, too, if they go get, a bullpen arm to add to the mix come spring training time. And lastly, Jason asks, at this point, everyone is panicking about the Royals' lack of signings. There is plenty of time, in my opinion. If we just got a solid left-handed bat to take Frazier's spot and a starting pitcher, Michael Lorenzen, John Means, Spencer Turnbull, would this be enough, or would you be disappointed? If they don't get that middle of the order bat, I would be disappointed. Because I do think they desperately needed to lengthen out the lineup. They lost in the postseason because the offense wasn't strong enough. The offense didn't have enough depth with it, and the Yankees did. And a middle of the order bat could go a long way in just boosting a few wins for this team. And boosting a few wins could go as far as winning them division and getting them, home field in that first round of the postseason. Meeting somebody in the ALDS, but the first two games are at Kauffman Stadium. That's important to me. Just adding a bench bat to replace Frazier and a number 6 starter isn't going to be enough even when you throw in Michael Wacha and Jonathan India to that. I think they need the middle of the order bat. I think they need a 6 starter. I think they need another role player. And I do think they need at least one bullpen arm for me to be really satisfied with what they did in the offseason. All right, that's going to do it for our final episode this week on Locked On Royals. Thank you all who listened out there, whether it be on YouTube or any of those podcasting platforms. But again, thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB as baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll be back on Monday, of course, unless there's breaking news over the weekend. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.